Welcome back to the Secret Passage podcast. It is I, your host, Dana Vespoli.
And it is I, Shannon Rogers, your co-host, Dana Vespoli.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. And we're back for our third and final episode on the Madeleine McCann case. Today we are discussing how the media handled reporting on this case, its general treatment of Madeleine and her family. And we will, of course, be doing a little bit of comparison contrast to JonBenét Ramsey and the way that the media handled her case back in 97. So without further ado, let's get into it. So one thing that we know for sure is that the media went crazy with this case, with Madeleine McCann when she went missing. In fact, so right in May 3rd, when she went missing, pretty quickly, right away, the day after, the McCanns phoned everyone that they knew, their close friends and family in England, and wanted news to spread as quickly as possible, which it did. So right from the jump, this story dominated headlines worldwide, with outlets like the BBC and Daily Telegraph calling it the most heavily reported missing person case in modern history. So, yeah, immediate coverage happened. And of course, the Portuguese media also swarmed the Ocean Club Resort. So this was absolutely overwhelming the media.
It was a feeding frenzy.
It absolutely was. And, the parents, of course, were using this as an opportunity to make emotional pleas. They were absolutely terrified about what was happening. They were appealing to anyone and everyone through the media. Outlets were broadcasting live from the scene. The story, of course, went viral very, very, very quickly. And it was, I hate to say it, but this is how so often the media handles things, is it made great copy. You have this good-looking, upper middle class white English family. The daughter is a beautiful little girl. It's a holiday gone wrong. It's a great story, right?
Yeah, it's something every single person could relate to, parent or no parent, and could I think it probably just struck terror in everyone. That you could.
It struck terror.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's also the wow.
She's so cute.
It's when bad things happen to people that it seems like bad things would never happen to, right? So, like, you've got the McCanns. They're doctors. Their friends are doctors. They're at a resort that a lot of people couldn't afford to go to. Their beautiful white fairy princess looking daughter is missing.
While they were having tapas.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's just
so it's bad, and it reminds me quite a bit of the way that people responded to the JonBenét Ramsey case, which is, oh, look, a rich white family. Well, what did they think was going to happen? Their daughter was a beauty pageant kid that won, she was a beauty pageant queen. Of course, this is going to happen. So it's like, I understand, again, with the McCanns leaving their kids alone. There's a bit of that, also that harsh judgment. What did they think was going to happen? They left their children unattended.
Right, so the moral outrage.
So there's a lot of moral outrage.
And also it's like a fairy tale turned nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So initially, there was just general fascination with the case. Again, it read like a terrible movie, like a thriller, dominating the headlines. Most people were looking at this with sympathy. There's quite a bit of sympathy, and Then, as time went on, and the McCanns were really, really pushing to keep this story alive in the headlines because they wanted as many eyes as possible on their daughter. They wanted people to care as much as they did about finding her. Um, then, so momentum is building from about May to June of 2007. The media outlets they released the last known photo of Madeleine. Police were issuing descriptions of potential suspects. That there was again the sighting of the man carrying the little girl
Mhm.
that could have been Madeleine. That people were reporting sightings from places like Morocco and Malta, and the McCanns had launched the Find Madeleine campaign, which got massive press, and celebrities like David Beckham and J.K. Rowling were amplifying it, turning it into a global phenomenon. But early on, there were gripes about Portuguese police being uncommunicative. This was noted in family statements that were picked up by the UK tabloids. So the McCanns were
Oh,
feeling like they weren't getting a lot of communication, which again, I think it explains a lot of trying to push this story out worldwide.
because
Just yeah,
and then there were the cultural pieces around, like, in Portugal, they do not talk about cases publicly when they're investigating them, so that was a big cultural difference between England and Portugal. I think that also impacted the media and the sort of it ratcheting up, right?
right. And then
Yeah.
also would stoke resentment on both sides with the McCanns and with the Portuguese, saying, "Hey, don't mess with our legal process." But I also, of course, understand it's a missing child. It's not a murdered child. We don't know definitively what happened to her. We
Yeah,
have to raise the alarm. We have to because she's missing.
totally.
Keeping it quiet. How the hell are we going to find her if we're keeping it quiet? So absolutely, I understand that. So then Oof. Then we have some shifting tides about July to August of 2007. Okay. Again, Madeline went missing May 3rd. And then when we get into around July, August, summertime, at this point, sniffer dogs and forensic hints like blood traces in the apartment led to sensational headlines. Portuguese media speculated wildly, and British papers followed suit. On August 6th, reports of blood on the walls hit hard, ramping up the drama. The 100-day mark saw outlets acknowledging she might not be alive, and Jerry McCann released videos about a possible predator. Criticism grew over how the crime scene wasn't preserved, destroying clues. Media outlets like Sky News blasted this as a major failure. So now the Portuguese police are like, yo, are you saying we failed? Like, no, this is not good. This is,
Mm.
now again, we're dealing with added conflict. And then from about September to December, the Portuguese police named the McCanns as arguidos, which means suspects. And the press went into overdrive. Tabloids accused them of involvement with stories about accidents and cover ups based on misinterpreted DNA evidence, which we discussed in our last episode when we talked about theories. That
Mhm.
a strong theory that the Portuguese police were pushing was that the McCanns tried to sedate their children to keep them asleep while they went to dinner and accidentally overdosed her and killed her, or that Madeleine somehow took a tumble in the apartment and died accidentally and they were trying to cover it up. So now this is being leaked to the press in Portugal. So, yeah, tabloids accuse them of involvement, the McCanns, with stories about accidents and accidents and cover-ups. The McCanns returned to the UK amid the media backlash. So this is when they left, and they were being accused of suddenly not caring about their daughter, or they're leaving Portugal with somehow evidence that they were involved when they insisted that they needed to get back to England with their twins, Sean and Amelie, who needed to have as normal a life as possible. So they returned to England as this was happening. And then there were papers like The Express that were running terrible headlines, and they were later sued for libel. By November, Jerry McCann spoke of being watched, but the tone had soured, with some outlets portraying the parents as negligent for leaving the kids alone. And I absolutely remember that as being a common thread with a lot of the information that I was seeing in the news around them as well. So this phase was absolutely frenetic. It was 24/7 coverage, paparazzi hounding the family. There was a mix of sympathy and suspicion, which we saw. So there was quite a bit of scrutiny that was turning against the McCanns. And later on, this was criticized as like a pack mentality. You have these grieving parents just trying to keep things alive, keep the investigation alive, trying to find Madeleine. And then what you discussed, with this, there was a sort of compassion and information fatigue that was happening with readers and viewers alike, with this case just being pushed out. And in 2008, the investigations closed. Media lawsuits and lingering doubts abounded. The case was archived in July of 2008, so just a little over a year after it was initially opened. Due to lack of evidence, media coverage dialed back, but didn't vanish. And the McCanns were cleared, but the press kept digging. Anniversary and sketches happened from about January to May, so that was a good chunk of time. Outlets were marketing the first anniversary with tributes and sketches of suspects based on witness descriptions. The McCanns sued several UK papers, like the Daily Express, for libel, winning settlements over false claims. They called out irresponsible journalism in interviews. When Portugal ended the investigation, media outlets debated the decision, with some praising the McCanns' resilience and others questioning loose ends. Private detectives hired by the family made headlines, but coverage was more reflective, focusing on the emotional toll. So the McCanns had their own investigators with the financial assistance of that one gentleman in particular.
Yeah.
Who had observed this case and wanted to help them. And they were ripped off. I know was it both organizations ripped them off?
There was the Metoda 3, and that was the Spanish investigation firm where the owner of it, Francisco Marco, ended up speaking too soon and saying that they would have Madeleine back by Christmas or whatever he said.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did a whole lot of, nothing really came of their investigations. And then they went with the other team, which was Oakley, with Kevin Halligan, and he ended up being a total fraud, and took them for quite a bit of money, or took the donor for quite a bit of money. Terrible.
Yeah. So there, as time went on, there was a shift from hysteria to a kind of analysis. And a lot of critics, like those in The Guardian, were pointing out how, media sensationalism might have hindered a lot of efforts to actually find her. And that rings true, of course. It echoes quite a bit of JonBenét, with so much attention being thrust onto the family. Every interview, every facial twitch expression, what is
Yeah.
said, what is not said, just being heavily, heavily, heavily critiqued, and just put out for people to consume like rabid dogs, to
Totally.
judge.
Yeah, I think what this case and the JonBenét case really made me think about was just the sheer power of the media to shape people's minds, the narrative, and in this case, what could have been used for a very important function, they could have spent their time and energy and efforts in really investigating, suspects, because journalism, we have investigative journalists that can often do work that the police aren't can't do or don't do. Um, Instead of just feeding us this sort of inflammatory, blaming, I think of the Geraldo Rivera episode where he has the mock trial for the Ramseys, and that entire hour could have been spent enlisting people to help or exploring different whatever. I mean, it's just it's such a misuse of energy and time. But if there's a profit motive, they're going to do what sells, is what I basically have come to when I think about the media today and the media of yesterday, of those times. It's like, people love a salacious kind of, gossipy story.
And,
And
and that
yeah.
becomes the priority, is let's sell this paper. We got to sell papers. We got to sell stories. What's going to sell more?
Yeah,
Not
like
right. See, yeah, maybe the actual investigation just isn't compelling enough to sell a paper, but accusing somebody of possibly being involved somehow
yeah, the
is the
parents
thing.
did it. Oh, those parents are having sex parties and all the stuff that, instead of saying, we don't actually know what happened. And here are the things that people are thinking about that might have happened, and helping people think critically, or like I guess that doesn't sell as much as, getting people's amygdala going, like getting the villagers all riled up with their pitchforks and torches. It's sad to be played like that. I feel like that in a way there's like, I think about this a lot, like how our empathy can get weaponized against us, and we
Mhm.
can be like used for other people's ends. And I don't wonder about that with true crime. Doesn't do that too much in my experience, but so there's empathy that can be weaponized, but there's also like your anger, right? Your emotions can be weaponized against you to sell you things, whether it's an ideology or it's a product. And they just know what to do and how to sell. And like with the porn industry, which we've talked about, right? They watch the market. And then the market, what does the market want? And then they feed them. It's like they don't have any other principle. Like, who cares what the market wants? We want to actually go try and find the truth here, you know?
Right. Well, it's what it looks at, and this is very
Mhm.
similar to porn, is let's acknowledge that we're dealing with addicts. Like, let's
Oh,
acknowledge that already.
yes.
And you got to ramp it up. You got to ramp it up, and you got to ramp it up. And that's when you get into things like, the McCanns having sex parties, with absolutely nothing to indicate that that would even remotely be true, right? It's
Yeah.
that is absolutely just something that's pulled out of somebody's ass that
Mhm.
sounds compelling.
Right, it's like outrage porn.
Yes, it's to outrage people, it's to upset people, absolutely. It's to disgust and horrify people. It reminds me of in Brave New World, remember the Feelies? people would go, and they would go to this thing called the Feelies instead of like the movies, where they could just get sensory
Wow.
fixes and stuff. And that's kind of where we are now. That's what
Absolutely.
I go onto Instagram and it's like, what?
Yeah.
You know, what?
Uh,
I'm outraged. I can't believe this. Oh, look at this. Oh, that's pretty. I want it. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, look, a cute animal. What she said? What? That's great. Yeah, it's just like
yeah.
one thing after another. And if there's anything that might even seem too measured, you're going to click past it. So,
Yeah, it takes effort. It takes
yeah.
Well, it takes effort to tolerate not like I would love for this to become normalized. Like my friend said one time she was driving past the Universal Unitarian Church in Berkeley and it was right around their Easter service and on the little the thing they have outside, the marquee, it was like Easter. We don't really know what happened. That was their statement. And it was kind of like this approach to something as, we don't know. And we just don't do that in life. Like we don't have
We don't know
papers.
what.
Well, they don't know what happened with the resurrection is what they believe.
Well, that's because
That's
they
their
didn't read the Bible. But anyway, let's move on.
But
The answers are there. I know I'm a Christian though, so I'm just like, I hate hearing that. I'm like, tell me you haven't read the Bible without telling me you haven't read the Bible. But sure. I mean, if you don't know something, regardless, it's okay to say that you don't know.
well, yeah, like we
Regardless.
don't right, like we don't have proof of a lot of things. We don't know a lot of things, but we don't like to admit that. I mean, if you look through most everything you see online, it's like opinion. There's some facts, theories. I mean, I know we can know there are things that we do know, but we tend to err on the side of certainty and presenting it in a wrapped up, especially around this case, like in a wrapped up, nice, tidy narrative that isn't just facts. It's like it's packaged as a whole thing, right? And it goes in
Because
as a whole
people want
thing.
certainty.
Well, yeah, and they want tidy narratives, which I really, when I think about this case, I really think that it's crazy to think. Based on evidence and lack of evidence, it's kind of crazy to think the parents could have done it. I don't know. I'm not a forensic expert, but if you think about what they're asking of the parents, they were asking the parents. I know I'm getting off, but this came to mind yesterday. They're asking the parents to prove that another person was in their house when their kid was missing. I have never heard that in any other case where a child has gone missing, where they're like, well, can you prove that someone was in your house? They're like, well, my child has been taken. So, you know what I mean? It's like that just seems like a weird burden to put on them because certainly people can sneak into houses and steal things without you knowing they were there or having any proof that they were there. And I feel like we just kind of take that for granted in other cases.
Yeah, that is a very odd burden to put on the parents, because that's suggesting that they're somehow skilled in forensics. Like, because of course all they can do is say, my child is gone. My
And
child is
it's,
gone. The bed is
yeah.
empty. She is not in the house. That's the only conclusion I can come to. What are you asking of me? Are you asking me to look for footprints or DNA?
Well,
Like,
they
what are you?
were, yeah. I mean, the Portuguese police were basically saying, and I've never heard this in any other case, that, and even in that podcast I listened to, someone was saying like, well, how can you prove that she went missing or something? I'm like, well, she's gone. Like
Right.
instead of being, walking away or being killed. So I think that from the get go, there was sort of this, the framing started with the police department, and then the police department put out their framing as a leak to the thing, and they put it out with certainty, and so the papers picked it up with certainty, and then they just ran with it. So it's it's both a media breakdown and a law enforcement breakdown in that relationship. And that same thing happened with JonBenét. The Boulder police put all this information out with certainty to the media. They picked it up and ran with it. And then there was sort of later on everybody asking, well, then who's responsible? for this.
I know that the McCanns got criticism because their very first impulse was to say that she was taken.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you're going to go to the worst possible scenario so that it can be treated as seriously as possible,
Of
right?
course,
As
yeah.
opposed to, if they're like, well, why did you jump to that? Why didn't you think that maybe she wandered away? Maybe she went outside, maybe this. And it's like, number one, I know my child, and that does not jibe with the way that she behaves normally, one. And two, we have to treat this in the most serious way possible right now so that she's found, right? So it's such an odd expectation to put on the parents to
And I think
defend their
right.
belief. Yeah.
Well, to defend something that most people would just assume is kind of the default. I mean,
Yeah.
and also it's not provable a lot of the times. I'm sure they didn't. I mean, I can think of a lot of abduction cases, and then where the parents like, did they have to prove that someone came into the house and got their kid? Like, but I mean, they probably had to rule the parents out, which is totally normal. But then it makes me think about like the media isn't just this blob. Like it isn't just a concept. Like the media are people, and so are the police. And you think about like Amaral, who was in charge of that investigation, and you think about the people who work for him, and you think
Right.
about the hierarchies that exist there, and you think about the newsroom, and you think about the people who run the newsroom, and then the hierarchies that are there. And I imagine there are quite ethical police officers and intelligent police officers and ethical and intelligent media people who work within a system. And then there's sort of like, I can imagine if you have this person who's your superior officer and they're so sure that this is the way this investigation should go, I don't imagine a lot of people argued with him, especially with his big personality.
Sure.
So you get this sort of like squashing of a dissent, right? And so I think in the media, same thing happens. You have this whole corporate organization. You have the writers, the reporters, and then you have the higher ups who have expectations. And so that changes everything. So I don't know. I just think about the power structures and how that influences the media.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
And law enforcement. Yeah.
so around 2011, Kate McCann releases a book called Madeleine. So this boosted visibility again for the case. And of course, Kate got a good mix of support and criticism in her book. I know that she was criticized. This one thing popped up, and I just thought it was such a weird thing to focus on for the public or some of the readers to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because she described Madeleine as having a compact body, that she was this little compact child. I don't see how that's weird.
Oh God.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, they're like, such a weird word. I'm like, well, I use that word all the time. Like when I go to
It's a
wrestling matches and I'm like, oh, that kid is like really compact. You can sort of see where like all of his power and strength is just sort of like in his core, like
it's a good
compact is a word we use
descriptor.
all the time. How is that
Yeah.
weird?
Well, this just shows. So, okay. So there's the media's responsibility, and then there are people's responsibility. And I think people as consumers and viewers need to start questioning things a lot more, like their own reactions to things. Just because
Yeah.
you have some discomfort about something doesn't mean that it's incorrect. And
And what's offensive about the word compact?
it's
It's so weird.
compact. She's compact. I don't know.
She's
Maybe
just had a
because
compact, I picture just like a little person who's like running around and not gangly,
maybe they
like the
thought
opposite
she.
of like gangly.
Maybe they thought she was talking. Maybe it evoked for them something about sticking her in a suitcase and burying her. I don't know. Like
Sure.
that she could describe her body at all. Probably evoked stuff for people.
She's a doctor.
I
Like
know.
I don't know. It's
It's
a very weird thing to focus on. Again, it becomes that when someone's decided that you can do nothing right, anything you say or do is going to be up for scrutiny, just like with Patsy and John and
It's also the language
everyone.
thing, like, right, like the network, like that could be a totally fine word for someone and not kick off a whole cascade of thoughts. It reminds me, I was listening to Real Crime Profile yesterday, just the last episode in their series about Madeleine McCann, and what's her face from Scotland Yard with the British accent.
Yes.
So they were all weighing in on what they thought happened. And it was funny to listen to her. She was at odds with everyone else. She's very suspicious. She's the one who was on that CBS documentary who's accusing Burke Ramsey of being the killer, and they got sued for it.
She was accusing Burke.
Oh yeah, she and this other guy, I think it might be the other guy from Real Crime Profile, but she and someone else from the FBI were watching him bit by bit, play by play on an interview, and they were like, "Oh, he's so suspect." Like just going off, and they got sued because it was totally, you know. But she was at odds with everybody else and her thinking about it, and she said that she thought their behavior was strange, and I forget what they did. It was something. It was something they said. I forget. But then Jim, I think his name's Jim, comes in with another thought about it. Like, well, that I could see that being normal in this circumstance. But you can just hear how our own personal biases inform how we respond to things. I mean, and that how we're all just speculating, especially in these two cases, especially. But it's like this is all really a lot of speculation. And then I just people need to realize, I think, when they're being fed a line and who's feeding them that line and what might be their motive for feeding them that line, and then also recognize that we make stuff up all the time. Just make stuff up based on what we hear, and to realize that like some of these elaborate theories, like that JonBenét is Katy Perry and that Ghislaine Maxwell stole Madeleine. Like it's just yeah. When there's not a lot of information, we fill it in.
Also, Ghislaine Maxwell was way too bougie for Praia de Luge. Like, let's be honest. She's way too like, no.
I know. Oh God, totally. That profile did look like her though.
That profile looked like everybody.
Like haircut. That oval thing, that also cracks me up, is that they went forward with that e-fit that they drew of the suspect, and it was
that
just
has no face,
oval with hair.
Yeah, that had no face. That was so funny. Then in, let's see, 2011, 2012, Operation Grange launches. So the UK police reopen this case. And this led to fresh media buzz. E-fits of suspects were released, and outlets like CNN covered potential breakthroughs. And so around this time, the media tone was beginning to kind of soften towards support, although tabloids were still kind of like speculating. And then, of course, we had documentaries coming out, and then, of course, the introduction of Christian Bruckner as a major suspect has also shifted public opinion and media, the way that the media is approaching the case. Also, and this had to have been, I can't imagine what this was like for the McCanns, but people coming forward claiming to be Madeleine McCann.
Mm-hmm. That woman.
That one woman that insisted that she was Madeleine McCann to the point where they even did like DNA testing. She's not, of course, we knew this, but there are just some wild and crazy people out there. People acting like they're Madeleine McCann. That one guy that was wanting so badly to take credit for the death of JonBenét Ramsey, but it wasn't him. You remember that guy?
Oh,
that absolute
Carr.
freak.
Ugh.
Yeah.
He looked, I could definitely, when I saw him, I was like, I could see that, but no. He
had that same kind of vibe, energy as Christian Bruckner. Like cut from the same cloth, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, one thing that I will say is that with this particular case, there was a shift in energy, right? The initial reporting was, of course, one that created quite a bit of sympathy and worry and concern in the public.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shifted to blaming the McCanns. And then it kind of it vacillated back and forth between
Mm-hmm.
sympathy and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think since the introduction of Christian Bruckner, there's just been a general energy shift towards some objective distance, I think, and waiting to see what comes of this, especially with the announcement from the German authorities that Madeleine is in fact dead, or that they believe they're insisting she is dead, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with JonBenét, it started out from the beginning as lurid because you had right away it was the beauty pageant,
Mm-hmm.
the extreme wealth. I want to even say some of like the southernness of Patsy and John, right?
Yeah, and there were so many more images and movies of her that were accessible to people, so it fed this,
Right.
um, yeah, definitely. It started out pretty. I don't remember how long. I mean, that might have been a tiny window of sympathy for the parents, and then it just. Phew, but I don't know how the window might have been like a week. I don't know. Everything I ever saw was already sensationalizing it
Yeah.
and taking off with that narrative. Yeah.
Right. It was lurid from day one. Like
Hmm.
my recollection of the case was just it was like they were trying to frame it like it was some sort of a gothic horror tale as opposed to an actual tragedy that occurred with the McCanns. It's so interesting. Just as someone, we consume so much media. We just automatically, like, as I'm doing this recording with you, my phone is off to the left and it is vibrating every so often with news and
Hmm.
information.
Hmm.
Um, if I'm trying to take some sort of a break from it, someone is letting me know that things are happening
Hmm.
or I'm being messaged things.
Hmm.
And so we're constantly bombarded with information. Uh, and there's something really spooky about this idea. It's not even an idea. It is the truth that we are constantly manipulated. We all are. And like I sit here with you and we're talking about this. We're talking about Madeleine. We're talking about JonBenét. We're talking about this information that comes out. And the bottom line is I'm reading the same headlines. I'm getting the same information. It takes energy to sit back and try to frame it as this is one perspective. This is one framing. This is, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? There's just so much information.
Yeah,
And
and you have your algorithms too that shape what information you see and don't see, and it only just takes repetition for us, I think,
right.
to like I was thinking about this yesterday in terms of clients. Oh, I hope I can remember this because it was a good one. Um, oh, so I was thinking about how sometimes I try to teach people about like how our minds work around learning. So like if I said Mary had a little, you would
Lamb.
think lamb.
Right.
So I was like to try to describe how these networks expand and grow. I was like, oh, I could say to people, what if I said Mary had a little and you said something and I was like, no, octopus. And I'm like, chances are, if I did that a bunch of times, that would shift that for you. Every time you heard Mary had a little whatever, you would think lamb, but then you would think back to this moment with me and you'd think octopus. You'd think that memory is, like it only takes repetition. going into this, you know, for us to sort of, and some people I think are better at dismissing or filtering it out, which is confirmation bias, right? Like
Sure.
rejecting it, um, and rejecting it as this is right, this is wrong. And then other people are more flexible and let it in, you know, new information, other information. It could be good information, it could be bad information, you don't know. And so, yeah, I guess the thing is like, don't just be lazy and be sucking it in and taking it as the truth, whatever you're hearing. Think critically about it. Someone's telling you this, but just because they're a newspaper reporter doesn't mean that they are, you know, corner the market on what's true and real. We just give a lot of power over to the media. And if they're citing if they're citing sources as being other people we give over a lot of power to, like authorities, then that also has bigger impact on, right, on what we will give credit and believe. But yeah, it's like a lot of people are just really passive with information.
Yes.
Hmm.
And again, I think that also can be attributed in part, at least, to information fatigue. You
Oh
get so
God,
tired. It's like, oh,
yeah.
sure, fine, okay, reputable source, I guess, legacy media. It's fine. I believe it. Ironically, we're at a time in history where information can be transmitted instantly, right? I think back even to like, I mean, shoot, we didn't have it yet. We didn't have it, but we had people. It was at a time when people could afford to buy camcorders, right? So you had the Rodney King incident. So that was recorded,
Yeah.
and that shifted things greatly, and it was revolutionary.
Hmm.
And so, and it can affect change, right? So I
Hmm.
think about like, you can prove that you're innocent or prove that you're guilty within seconds. But ironically, at the same time, because of how much information can get out there, things can be shaped and molded to present you in a completely different way. And then that
Yes.
same information is used as evidence that, in fact, the version that's going out is the correct one, not the
Yep.
one that you are insisting for yourself, right? So I think
Yeah.
about you think about the fact that there are still people, and I know, again, we have our what we believe and what we won't know until DNA is actually tested.
Hmm.
But I believe enough in the evidence that Patsy and John and Burke were exonerated, right? There are people who believe that, that John molested and murdered his own daughter. And they'll believe that forever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Even now. Yeah. Even when the
E
DNA comes out, probably.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. If
mhm.
you don't wanna believe something, you will find a way, that you will find well, he's rich and powerful, he used someone else's he's got connections, he's connected, da, da, da. Yeah, and the same thing with the McCanns. There's probably someone out there that really believes that Kate was assaulted by a stranger and Madeleine was killed, and Kate is trying to protect her life by not telling the truth. So I'm going back to that one Reddit thread that was like, this
Oh
is what
yeah.
I think. Kate had a bruise on her arm. I'm sorry, I still go back to that. She had a bruise on her arm, therefore this is what happened, based
It is
on nothing but a
honestly,
bruise. It's terrifying. There are
it's
people like that out there.
I would never wanna be tried by a jury of my peers. Never. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really I don't know. Um, I think the media needs to, I mean, really, I think they really need to take more responsibility. I just think it's so, or suffer the consequences, which is now people don't trust them. A
Yeah.
lot of people, many people don't trust them. There's a lot of loss of faith in this institution, and uh, for good reason. And just think about the real life hurt. That's another piece of this. Is like, I just think about the experience of someone who just lost their child in the most horrific way possible. I mean, it's always horrific, I guess, to lose your child, and to be talked about that way, and to have other minds turned against you. I mean, I guess it's a good opportunity to learn to not give a shit what people think about you. But what a pile on. And I was so happy to see that when they moved to that little village in England, the McCanns, that village really sort of surrounded them and protected them from media. I watched a documentary, and I don't think it was the Netflix one, but where they were reporters were trying to talk to the townspeople, and they were like, no, like, we're not going to do it. They need this space and time and to live their normal lives. And it was such a wonderful thing to see that people could rally and against and protect from that. Yeah.
Yeah, community is so important, and that restores so much faith. That restores my faith when I hear stories like that. Um, just the absolute grief that we saw just in images, distant video footage of Kate walking, and regardless of whether or not you believe that they accidentally killed their child, didn't accidentally kill their child, the child it just was taken, but to look at a woman who is absolutely grieving and just shaken, and to heap so much abuse on that person is just so, I don't understand it,
I know it's like, I think about like all the art. I don't know if these exist or don't exist, but I think about all the articles that could have been written from like a meta perspective, like a perspective of, well, their perspective, imagine what it's like to try to encourage like empathy or compassion, um or even like thought exercises, like, okay, so what if they did? Well, then what? Like, what if their kid accidentally died? Well, then what? Are they like beyond redemption? Are they not forgivable? Are they, you know, scum like you're treating them? It's like, it's just, it just feels so, manipulated is a really good word. I feel so manipulated by the media so often. Like Tim and I watch media now on, like news programs, or
Sure.
they're not really more like talk shows, but we play like spot the propaganda, because a lot of it's just empty. It's just you can see there's not a lot of facts being discussed, nothing like about policy. It's all just this sort of snarky, um, our team, rah, rah, rah kind of thing. And you can feel and the pacing of the way they talk, the language they choose to frame something, um, to make it's just it's very tricky, and I think we're not trained to see through that. I think in
Right.
other cultures they are, um, but in our culture, I think we just drink it up. A lot of us. I mean, people are more skeptical now, but yeah, it would be nice to have, another sort of perspective. I guess that's what the true crime community does fill. It's like people who are not, of corporate media can have more nuanced conversations, it seems like us.
Right.
Which is great. But it didn't exist at that time, and so it was just a free for all. I wonder if these cases would have been drowned out by the cacophony of other stories if they happened now. Because like that kid that just went missing, Thomas Medlin, who was playing Roblox and he went to go meet someone in the
Yeah.
city. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you see that it's up, people are posting it, but there's a whole there's all like tons of other things just everywhere. So I wonder if like in the information overload, these cases would have, or how long they would have stayed in our consciousness.
Right. Well, I think it has to, for things to really blow up, you have to fulfill a certain formula.
Oh yeah,
The
like
formula has to work. It has to be, a pretty young white girl, affluent family.
yeah.
Look at the Billings, Montana thing. That's gonna fucking blow up.
Which
That girl that that stabbed her math teacher and then stabbed herself, and it follows a formula of
yeah.
it's like, oh, she's like Alicia Silverstone from The Crush, and this is also very Lolita. This is
Mhm.
very the police don't stand so close to me. This
Yeah.
is she's thin and cute-ish. She's an
Yeah.
influencer, so you can go on TikTok and see her stuff and you can feel like you're participating in it. So I
Yeah.
think if it fits a format. Jodi Arias was huge, another like
But
attractive.
but they they that was that before the internet? I'm just wondering because
Jodi Arias was during the internet. It was
Gabby
during the internet.
Petito was like a big deal, right? And
Yeah,
then it went away really fast, but that's because they found
they
her
found
body,
her.
I guess.
Yeah,
But if
the
if
case was
they,
solved. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm very curious about that. I wonder if you did like a study, like if nowadays, if it just gets pushed out because you're scrolling and the next thing comes, even if it's the compelling case. I
Mhm.
can't think of anything else besides Gabby Petito.
So there's Jodi Arias was a big deal. Gabby Petito was a big deal. Um, let's see. I'm
I'm
trying to
thinking like social media age, most recent age, like
the
last mhm.
the most recent age.
Like last 5 to 10 years. Like when do you think
Okay.
when do you think we just got into this like overload? There's Facebook, there's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. This is
Yeah. So
mhm,
so so tw Facebook became a big deal in, like, what, '08, '09? Right around
mhm,
then, right?
mhm,
Twitter, '09, I
mhm.
think it came out. Prior to Facebook was MySpace. That didn't last very long.
I loved MySpace.
Yeah, me too. Um, and then TikTok and Instagram. So Instagram came before TikTok. There was this weird little period where Vine was a thing, but not for very long, and then TikTok took over. Um, Gabby Petito, I think because she was a social media influencer
Mhm.
and was so heavily online, that blew up very quickly.
Yeah.
That took off very quickly, and it felt very, for lack of a better word, interactive because
Yes.
everyone could be a super sleuth
Yes, yes, yes,
and
in real time.
in real time and look at her previous posts, compare and contrast. Was this her that posted this? Was this not? The footage that was put out of her crying and the police and whether they handled it well or not with her.
Mhm.
Um, so that was very viral. That was a very viral story, and again, it had all the components to work
Mhm.
as something that would have energy. That would
Mhm.
um, you had the pretty girl, you had the online, like chronically online, something that everyone kind of like was at the time coveting, this van life artsy type thing. It was like of its time, and I think that's the thing where it becomes viral because of online people that are chronically online seeing that, I think, and
Mhm.
running off with it.
And creepy boyfriend, that was another piece,
Oh,
like,
dude.
whoa, oh gosh, like,
And his parents, like, come on, dude. Oh, jeez.
oh, I just imagined, like, the farts in that van. Just, like, sleeping together in the van and, like, just vanning it in the tiny space together. She would get mad at his dirty feet with sand on them. You know about this, right? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, just the having to live with another person in a van like that and, oh, what a
Oh,
nightmare.
without him being a control freak and abusive, that's would be
Well,
hard enough, but then you add to that he was
eh
a terrible person.
right, well, and also, like, they're so young. Who knows how much money they had. Like, this desire for stardom and the social media, and it just was a mirror for us in some ways, right? Like a dark mirror for our culture. And
Yeah.
oof. But those stories are compelling because we can relate to them, we can participate in them, we can.
You covet an aspect. Like there's something
Mhm.
to be said for even with like the JonBenét Ramsey story is, the lifestyle that they had was one that many people would covet. I certainly am not ashamed to admit that. Are you kidding? I'm like, oh, they're wealthy. They have no worries. They, you know, can do all of this. So it's you're looking at characters, quote unquote, that are wealthy, ha- uh, happy family. These are things you want, and then something goes wrong, right? And then McCann, same thing. Like they can afford to go on vacation for a week to a resort with all their friends. Like must be nice. They have good jobs. And then something happens. So you're kind of looking at these people, and it's like on the surface, prior to the tragedies, oh, they're leading lives that I covet. And then these things happen, and then it's compelling because it's like, oh shit, something bad happened to them.
There's probably a lot of envy. And,
Sure.
when we envy something, we often try to destroy it. And yes,
Schadenfreude.
the joy, yeah, well, the joy people see sometimes, right, in
Yeah.
watching other people fail or
Yeah.
suffer or have something. Um, it's interesting how dehumanizing the coverage is, like how uh it's so easy to lose track of them as real people with real hearts, and just like us, right? They're just like us. I mean, they have different circumstances in their lives and different socioeconomic status than a lot of us, but they're human like us. And yeah, I can start to see them. It's strange how quickly it can transform, how easy it is to dehumanize a person.
Right. Well, and then for these people, like I see sometimes, I don't know if you ever watch like little clips of like Harvey Levin, and he's like the TMZ guy, and he's like talking to his TMZ reporters, and they're all standing there talking, and the way they talk about people. And there's one situation a long time ago where Harvey Levin is talking to Paris Hilton, and he's telling her all of the mean things that people say about her, right?
Oh,
That they've written in, like just terrible, terrible things. And she's standing there listening, and he's like, they say this, they say that, they say this, they say that. And she's just kind of looking like she doesn't know what she's supposed to do with this information. And I'm like, you cannot tell me that Harvey Levin wasn't enjoying every second of him tearing her down. Of course, it's not him tearing her down. He's just reading her all the terrible things people say. And it's like, you don't have to like Paris Hilton. You don't have to. I actually like her a lot more now than ever after I watched this documentary about her, and she talks about going to that horrible fucking wilderness school where people were getting abused and all that.
whoa.
You know
I
about
didn't
that,
know
right?
that. No, I was wondering why she keeps showing up in my Twitter feed and she's like doing all this singing. And I'm like, where'd this come from?
Oh, she sings, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, remember that song in a, Promising Young Woman when Bo Burnham is, like, singing in the, pharmacy?
Oh,
That's
uh-huh.
Paris Hilton
Oh,
song that he
okay.
sing yeah, so that's playing. But, yeah, she has a singing career. She was a DJ for a while, but no, when she was a teenager, she was out of control, and her parents did that thing where the people show up at your house, and they, like, put a bag over your head, and they haul you
Oh,
out, and then you end up in Utah, and you're doing like horrible, like hard, brutal labor.
gotta learn a
And the kid,
lesson.
right. That
Mhm.
so that happened to her.
Mm.
So she does a lot of like advocacy for kids coming out of those situations and all that. But anyway, regardless of whether or not you like Paris Hilton, to look at someone in the face and just try to make their feelings hurt, trying to upset them, you're an asshole, dude. You're a fucking dick. I don't think anybody's gonna argue with me about whether or not Harvey Levin is a nice guy or not. His entire career was made off of just treating people like absolute shit. stalking celebrities, making fun of them, trying to dredge up horrible information. But like you have to really cut yourself off from any shred of humanity that exists inside of you to do a job where you are reporting on someone's misfortune, trying to tear them down in some way to amuse a public for better ratings. Like,
right. Or to making up their misfortune. I mean,
Yeah.
creating their misfortune. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, that's, again, I'm like, well, there's a market for it. I think of like the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, should everything be played to that market?
Are you not entertained? Wait, who is it? He's all. Is that in Gladiator? Right.
I never saw Gladiator. Yeah, no, but
Joaquin Phoenix, I think, is yeah, it's so good. I agree wholeheartedly. We are all in the seats watching someone like literally being torn apart by lions.
Yeah.
And then there's the figurative, watching people get torn apart. And just, we all hope and pray that we're never on the receiving end of that.
Somebody called us two hags on our Instagram.
Like I give a fuck. I'm like, you're right. I'd say 95% of the time I am a hag.
I prefer crone.
I prefer sea witch. I like nautical themes. Like, call me a sea witch.
People just, I mean, I guess, okay, let's try to get this all wrapped up in a nice, pretty bow. Take some responsibility for yourself as media consumers, and media, like, get a conscience or something. I don't know. Get some values.
Order one off of Amazon. They might have a sale coming up for Valentine's Day.
Same day delivery.
Yeah. You're like, I need a conscience. I don't care about anyone or anything.
Just my byline.
Well, guys, that wraps up this final installment in the Madeleine McCann case. Let us know your thoughts. Please give us 5 stars. Follow us on Instagram at Secret Passage Podcast. We think that you're pretty great and awesome. Thanks for all of your input. Even when it's negative, it's still fun to read. And we will see you next week.
Bye.